Do you just constantly hold this, or is that something you actually put?
This is weight training.
Okay.
Right.
For the fire.
Try it.
Keep that drafting arm supple.
Yeah, that's right.
That does have some weight to it.
Every day.
Yeah, really.
That's before I load it.
You should like, different shoulders. Yeah.
That's before I load it.
Shoulders.
Well, I've got
what
tilted cockeye because of this stupid.
Well, that's.
And also, could I just tell everybody there are soft drinks and finger sandwiches and snacks up front. The soft drinks are in the cooler up there, and your Diet Cokes are in the cooler behind the table.
Right.
First drink is free, second one is 20.
25. See,
yeah.
You can get 3 for 50.
At the hotel. At the hotel. In every fucking city. I'm using the word fucking.
That's perfect.
In every goddamn city I go.
It used to be called more fun comics.
Yeah, that's right.
They have Pepsi Cola. They have Pepsi Cola
Oh, I
products.
hate that.
Right, exactly. They have Pepsi, and you know that, like, yeah, and they have it at the desk or upstairs, in the machines. Obviously, Pepsi has bought their way into most of these hotels, and Pepsi is like, yeah, it's cola, and so if you go into like the coffee shop, you go, I like a Diet Coke. They go, is Diet Pepsi okay? And they do that like,
Yeah.
Is Diet Pepsi okay? Diet Pepsi. Oh, I'm really sorry. And they do that. They know everybody knows that it sucks. But it's in all the best hotels. It's in the Hyatts and the Marriotts and all the rest of that. Somebody's going around buying their way into these hotels. So when I do the videos on the internet, and I give advice to young artists and stuff, I hold up my Diet Pepsi. All the hotels don't have this. So I'm like, I'm looking for my case of Diet Coke. It's come in the mail. I haven't got it yet. Does anybody have any questions to start this off? Oh, okay, I'll sit down.
We sneak by. Get a better camera angle.
Okay, but one other thing. If you have any questions, I can answer any question that you have on any subject on Earth. Science, physics, interpersonal relationships, beehives, anything you want to ask, I can answer it. 90% of the time I'm wrong. But it's always nice to have somebody who can answer. Think about that. Okay. If you guys want to come up and look at the stuff and look at the drawings, I wouldn't call it a line so much as an assemblage of that stuff.
It's a good store for us. Hey man, you mind if I just shake your hand?
No,
You've been such a huge influence on me throughout my life.
Well, good. I mean, what do you do?
I'm an artist. Also, show down at a gallery on Royal Street. I've done
Excellent.
comics and album covers all my life.
That's great.
Been living here for far too
And you
long.
got a very nice, expensive leather jacket.
Well, it's an old expensive jacket. It wasn't that
Maybe, but
expensive
it's
back
not
then.
cheap. I can tell. The only guy in this place making any money is the artist. Guess
That's
what?
not true.
Well,
Thank you for that.
Lie from me, Argentina.
Let's keep that myth alive,
Thank you.
shall we?
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
It's a pleasure.
Are you in
It's a
town
pleasure.
for the con? Is that very
That's why we're here.
Next couple
Otherwise,
days?
I couldn't afford to come here.
Yeah. Where do you
So,
live?
New York, L.A.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
New York and L.A. They're pretty nice. I got a studio in New York. I got a loft in New York. I have.
Do you mind if I ask you stupid questions? Like,
You can ask me
what? And
anything.
you don't have a bill sticking out of your pocket. You know that. That's I was going to say that if it were your birthday, you could just have people come up and pay $10. That's a local.
How we do?
Yeah. Just
We had
tell
that
everybody it is.
last store I was at. I had one of those cakes with the baby in it.
King cakes.
Yeah.
King cake.
King cake.
Yeah, and we're handing it out to people, right? This kid gets a piece of cake, gets this thing in, spit it out, and threw it away.
Or choco. One of the two.
All right.
That's a big thing here. You started out when you were a teenager, huh? Pretty much.
18. There were guys who started out younger than I did. Joe Kubert started out when he was like 13, but he sucked at that time. No, he didn't. He didn't really. But it was a primitive time. It was a primitive time.
Well,
I started out of high school.
And was Ben Casey your first name? Or
No. I did Archie Comics.
Yeah,
Archie
I read that about
Comics.
you. Yeah.
That's right. And I did backgrounds for Bat Masterson comic strip.
Sure.
I did
commercial advertising. I did comics for advertising. I did a lot of stuff for Boys Life magazine. Chip Martin College Reporter for the telephone company, Daisy Air Rifles.
So many.
A lot of stuff. I had a whole career
Before you started.
before I did comics. It was an actual career. I had a syndicated strip for 3.5 years. That started when I was 20. Well,
and that's not the Casey strip. That's something else. Or?
That's the Casey strip.
Yeah.
But before that, between the
strip.
time, I was one of those guys who got into kindergarten. I didn't get into kindergarten because my birthday was June 15th, and somehow June 15th is a bad time, and they can't put you into kindergarten, and they can't necessarily put you in first grade, so they'll fucking put you in first grade. So I got into first grade early.
Sounds familiar.
So when I graduated high school, it was June. I graduated, so I just turned 18, and I started my career. And so between 18, just 18, and 20, the end of my 20th year, 20th year birthday, I had a career. I did all these things. I competed with people. I killed people behind buildings. And
really?
Well, it was, you got the competition is tough.
We're just resort to cutting off people's hands.
So then for 3.5, that career, I did ads for newspapers in the comic section. I did ads for magazines. I did illustration.
Formal training? Any formal training?
Well, formal
training
has to do with whether you have good teachers or whether you're a motherfucking monster.
Yeah.
Me, I was a motherfucking monster, and I tried to beat everybody I came in touch with or whose work I saw. Well, because there was no pathway. When I got out of high school, when I was in high school, everybody assumed that comic books would go away. If you guys may, some of you.
I know if my dad had his way, that would have been.
We had 1953 when I was in Germany. With the occupation forces, I was a 10-year-old kid with the occupation forces occupying Germany.
Interesting. You were like Bucky Barnes.
I think I was like a 10-year-old kid looking for hand grenades in the Black Forest.
Really?
Much, oh yeah.
Really?
And if you found one, call the MPs. So it was great, and the United States was rebuilding Germany, and I was this kid watching it happen. It was like magic, you know. The Army Corps of Engineers was rebuilding Germany. With the Germans.
They act here. That's interesting. Yeah.
We saved Germany and Japan and brought them back on their feet. Right. Unlike World War I, where we fucked with them, and so we got World War II as our prize. So, guess what? Maybe we shouldn't do that.
This time, let's rebuild.
Next time, help them up off the ground and dust them up.
Yeah.
Well, we did more than help them up off the ground. We built communities, and then the American families stayed in the communities until such time as they built another community. Then they would switch them off and let Germans move into the communities. The widows became maids and worked for the families.
Wow.
And they had jobs immediately. I mean, America comes over and they've got jobs for everybody. So I was there among this, watching all this stuff. The black market was great. Was encouraged by. Really, while the newscast said, oh, watch out for the black market, don't do that, all the Army guys' wives were dealing cigarettes and coffee on the black market to get Hummels and Dresdens and honey wagons and all these sculptures and stuff.
Honey wagons?
Honey wagons are a code name. Honey wagons are code name for a horseshit wagon. They carry horseshit wagons. They made it look good, and they called them honey wagons, but they were. So these were all these things that the artisans of Germany made to bring money into the community and other things. So we traded coffee for these things and cigarettes, which then were immediately exchangeable for money. So the whole what we did legally build the country, but illegally all the housewives pumped money into the economy. It was really incredible.
That's
No, it's fantastic.
And how does it come to pass that a 10-year-old kid ends up in
dependent? It's called a dependent.
You were.
I was an army brat. I was an army brat, and Army and Air Force and Navy and Marines have what's called dependents, wives and kids, and so they brought their dependents over with the Army of Occupation, and we, by our being there, helped the economy. because you have to take care of the dependents. You have to give them places to live. You have to give them food. You have to. The Army PX was available to the Germans. We built up the community, and we were customers. We went to the bars and we went to the restaurants and everything else. It was America had made a dedicated effort in every possible way to build up Germany as fast as possible, and it happened while you looked at it. I mean, we would go into town and shop, and you'd see a building that was being reconstructed that had been bombed, and you're in a town like Kaiserslautern, and you're watching these buildings that bam, just boom, like that, and guys are like like these, like you see in the animated cartoons, people buzzing around, building stuff up, bringing new columns in, refurbishing the place, bringing it back to what it was. Very fast, fantastic. If the Army Corps of Engineers had come to this city at Katrina with this attitude, we would have built this thing in a year. It's amazing, and I saw it as a kid. I'm watching this whole thing happening. So I come back to America, and all my best comics are gone. Captain Marvel's gone. AC Comics are gone. All these, Fawcett is gone totally. And now I've got DC Comics doing Batman and Superman, and every once in a while Wonder Woman, which would fail periodically. And still hadn't done Green Lantern or Flash yet. It was just Batman and Superman. And then there was Archie Comics. There was Dell Comics. There was Western Comics. There was Donald Duck Comics. There was
like Gold Key.
Harvey Comics. Little Dot. All of that. Little Lulu.
Richie Rich.
Yeah, Richie Rich. And at DC Comics, besides Superman and Batman, was My Greatest Adventure, Mr. District Attorney, and books like Pat Boone Comics, a favorite. Pat Boone Comics was great. It was drawn by Bob Oxner. You probably don't have any here, but
we have
wouldn't doubt that.
Beautifully drawn. Even Pat Boone looked like Pat Boone. And his two daughters and his wife.
I have your Jerry Lewis book.
And Jerry Lewis and Bob Hope. Yeah. And that's the kind of books they had. Sucked. Really?
Tell us what you really
bit the hairy banana. Really, the worst comic books on earth. Where were the comic books? Where are they gone? Where are my EC Comics and all that shit with, the guy's guts laid out along the base path so you could run the bases? Where was all that stuff? It was gone.
Nothing better than a cover with a guy getting stabbed in the eye.
Yeah.
What got you interested in drawing?
Drawing?
Doing art.
You mean doing art for a living or drawing?
Just in general.
My mom.
What was your sort of like?
My
hey,
mom.
I want to do that.
My mom did it.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at the kitchen table. My mom, who had gone to third grade, and she had friends. She could speak English pretty well. She was nice, and she was very attractive in her way. And she'd be sitting at the table smoking a cigarette, and it killed her 93 years later.
Wow, that's actually a good run.
Pretty good run. I'm recommending to Stan Lee start smoking cigarettes. Probably make it to 103. So
You can easily get that $60 signing then if he's got it.
Exactly. And drinking coffee out of these Army cups. For the Army, they made these pushed together material. It's not pressed material. And they would sit into one another, and they served them at the PXs and at the what do you call it? Anyway, where they ate, the slop house. Anyway, so what did you eat?
Mess hall.
Mess hall. A mess. I'm thinking slop. It's mess.
Yes.
So
the filth hole.
The worst fucking food on earth. Worst. Chip beef. You know what chip beef?
Yes, indeed.
Shit on a shingle.
Shit on a shingle. Right on.
God damn. Anyway, I'm buried in the Army. So I'm 6 years old. I'm sitting at the table, and I got a pack of Old Maid cards. And so I get a piece of paper, and I draw one of the Old Maid cards, copy of the Old Maid card. My mother loved it. Shit, I'll do it again. If your mother loves something, you do it again.
Get that pat on the back.
Exactly. So, like, I don't think I drew the whole deck, but I drew enough of them to, like, I'm the best kid on the block.
At this point, I would love to find the Neal Adams Old Maid card.
Wouldn't that be great?
That would be fun to have, yeah.
So I became the school artist. Wherever we moved to, I became the school artist. Like all schools have the school artist, right?
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I got interested in science. Very interested, very very big on science and engineering. But I didn't have the money to go to college. So I had to make a choice. I could draw. Clearly, I was better than most people.
Talented, yeah.
So I would go to an art school, and maybe I would learn some science by the way. And I did. They had some, actually, in the school that I went to, School of Industrial Arts, which was like one of these FDR schools that were trade schools, like plumbing and mechanical arts and all the rest of these. This was for art. That's what it was called. That's why it was called the School of Industrial Arts, as opposed to drawing pictures, whatever the hell it might have been called.
I was going to ask about what was your background in like geology and whatnot. I was watching the Growing Earth and Universe lecture that you gave, and
thank you so
Well, he was
much.
nice
Just for saying Growing Earth, just that alone, that made my day. Of all these people talking about expanding Earth. Anyway, no, I was a science geek. You can find science in any school. If you get a good teacher, or you get good books, or you got a good library. So I was a geek for science. I used to go home, and we, on our corner, we had a pocket what we call pocket libraries. The city was doing experimental, instead of going to the big library, they would plant these pocket libraries. And my favorite thing, besides reading comics, was to go into the library where they had all the ages science books. And the science books in those days, they used to have experiments where they'd show you what the experiment was and what you used to make the experiment. And if you turn the page, you get the result, what it does. So I would read the page and read all the stuff, and I go, okay, what's it going to do? Is it going to flow, or is it going to do this?
we've had comics come through here that are actually like young experiments for kids, for young children, and it's like how to make gunpowder.
Exactly.
And how to make pen fuse.
And so then I would read it like a comic book, and then I would turn the page. Oh, that's what happened. I get it now. And then they'd have the explanation of why. That was great to me. That was like, oh. So I just love that. I mean, I can con kids into loving that.
Good.
If you have a bunch of kids, I could con them into loving that, because we do the adventure and you do the thing. And guess what happens? It overflows the two.
Get you a position with the government.
Yeah. So I always loved science. I always loved how things work. I've always done in my art career. I've always been attracted to designing amusement park rides, doing technical illustrations for things that need technical illustration. One of the first things that I did for Boys Life magazine is a thing called Chip Martin College Reporter, and they reported on all the new technology that was happening.
You must have been in hog heaven, right?
Oh, just it was great. They had these. I did one particular page on long lines, the shift that the telephone company used to stretch telephone lines across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And so they had made this incredible ship that could just travel at 20 knots. At 20 knots, laying cable across the Atlantic Ocean.
But they just drop them on the floor?
They just drop them on the floor. Just laid them out, and they would connect them up over here. They'd roll them into here, and they roll them into here. And in the back end, it looked like a monkey's ass. The baboon's asses,
Sure.
And they just run them out, and they go into the ocean. Then they'd have to replace them because they'd melt through in the middle of the ocean.
Right.
That's what I would think. You would think. It's like,
that's what they did.
Like a real
in the middle of the ocean. In the middle of the ocean, they'd melt through, and they go, "What the hell is going on?" It's like,
do it again.
Do it again. Run another line, and they pull them up, and sure enough, it was melted.
Yeah.
Couldn't figure out what happened. No. What happened is, the ocean would crack open, the molten lava would come up and melt the thing. Wow. So you have to keep on laying lines. Wow. Very hard to lay lines.
So,
any ocean would
any
be
Chip Martin
in the middle.
Comics left? I mean, do you have any? Or
no, I have. Yeah, sure. You could probably find them on my website, nealadams.com. Probably. I've heard that.
I've heard that again.
Yeah. I'm just saying. So early on, I got work at Johnstone and Cushing place that did comics for advertising. Being tremendously competitive, I got to do the better jobs. Being reasonably intelligent, I got to write them too when a writing assignment came along and they didn't have somebody on the spot. So I wrote I Am the Guard, a comic book about the National Guard and all the technology through the National Guard, a book on leather, how you carve leather and make it into wallets and stuff. But I'm a good geeky researcher, and I'm good at taking it down to, like, I can talk science here and never use a technical term.
That's
because
great.
I know, I get that. Okay, so I did writing and drawing, which drove the professionals there a little crazy because this bastard is in the corner, taking all these jobs away from us. And so I would then lay out jobs and write them and then hand them out to other guys.
You think you could call him?
They could do it. So at Johnstone and Cushing one day, I'll tell you a little quick story. I'm at Johnstone and Cushing. I come in, and it's my birthday. It's my 21st birthday. No, it's my 20th birthday. I'm sorry. It's my 20th birthday.
Yeah, well, you never.
And they have a cake for me, right? So the artists are there, and they're handing out cake, and it's really, really nice. And so everybody's there. Why, why are you doing this?
Okay.
I took one of the guys aside. I said, look, I don't understand. Why are you making such a big fuss over this? I mean, it's really nice, but still, it's like a little weird. I said, we're making a fuss over this because we don't have to go home and tell our wives anymore that we've been beat out by a teenager.
It was like more of a milestone for them.
Yeah, as much of a milestone for them.
I mean, I tried to be generous and not.
Was that all in New York, or was
yeah,
that?
It was all in New York.
And that was the bulk of your career to begin with in New York, and then.
Well, if you mark it up, it's in I don't know 4 years. 4 years I did Archie Comics. I did the backgrounds of syndicated strip for 4 months. I did comics for advertising. I did illustration work. I did comic books. I wrote and drew comic books. Then by the time I was at the end of my 20th year, I did enough samples for the Ben Casey comic strip. And then while I was and then I did that for 3.5 years. And while I was doing that, I was doing storyboards and comps and illustrations for advertising agencies. I worked 7 days a week, 15 hours a day. That was my career up to giving up the strip and then coming back to comics. And as far as the comic book companies were concerned, I had fallen out of the sky. I had no idea where I came from. They didn't follow the strip. They didn't know who I was. Just like poof, this guy who can do everything showed up.
Here he is. Yeah.
And all that time, 1953 on, as comic book companies were crashing and burning, everybody was saying, and it happened when I was 18 years old. I went to DC Comics and I brought my samples because I wanted to get comic book work instead of this other career that I had. I brought my samples, and a guy named Bill Perry came out to the reception area. And he said, look, I really can't take your stuff inside. I said, well, I just want to show it to the editor, like the war con, whatever. He said, I can't let you in. We don't hire. He said, look, kid, find something else to do. We're not going to be in business in a year. Comics are on their way out.
Wow.
Oh, it wasn't just him. It was everybody. Everybody in comics thought, maybe another year and we're gone. That's how.
And what's that because of the whole?
Was that the EC thing or?
Congress in 1953 for all of you young folks.
The rest of you.
Not you. Yeah. Decided. I mean, they had finished with the communists, and they wanted to go on to something else, so they took out the dictionary and went, "Oh, comics, we'll do that."
What's next?
It's legislation by dictionary. Comics.
Absolutely.
Let's go after them. Communists. I'm tired with that. So they went after comics, and they did it on. And since they had done the commies on television, they did the comics on television. We don't do that anymore. It was just like, hey, we're the special prize. Get the fuck with comic books. So they had Bill Gaines on TV, knucklehead that he was. Didn't have a good representation. I mean, they got the worst, and they got Bill Gaines, and the guy shot up his mouth and hurt everybody. Hurt everybody in comics. Comic book companies started to close until the comic book company said, hey, look, we'll have this self-regulating agency called the Comics Code. We'll put a stamp on the comics. They'll only be able to write this stupid, incredibly stupid document called the Comics Code, and we'll hire a lawyer, and he'll make sure it gets taken care of, and we won't do any comic books that will warp and turn your children into juvenile delinquents. In spite of that, somehow they managed to. I don't know. They were ripping in my neighborhood. They were ripping aerials off cars and having gang fights and wearing black leather jackets and motorcycle boots with eagles on the back. And that's one of the ways I got through Brooklyn, painting eagles on the back of jackets.
Now, this is not a money question. The question is, what was the most lucrative like when you got this call or whatever, a letter, and what was like, oh shit, this is the most money I've ever made. What was there anything like that in your career that was like, oh my God, this is amazing, I'm going to make this much money to do X?
When I did Archie Comics, I was paid $32.50 for writing, penciling, inking, and lettering a page.
Wait, Archie Comics?
Archie.
Oh.
You've heard of it?
We're the Archies. $32.50. A normal wage for a worker was $50 a week. Wow. $32.50. 1 week, I came home I had gotten paid for 5 pages. I went to the bank. I got my money, got my checks. Right? I got it in 1s and 5s and 10s, which in those days was common. I took it home. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table with her cigarette and her coffee mug. And I walked in the door and I took this bundle of cash from my pocket and I threw it up and it hit the ceiling and went all over the kitchen table.
Nice.
And my mother went,
"Wah!" Nice.
That was a big moment. Cool. When I went to Johnstone and Cushing and did comics for advertising, which apparently I hadn't even realized, all those comic book artists that work for DC, it was all it was DC. Marvel was timely then. They were doing Stan's 5 stories, 6-page versions, all 5 stories over and over again. Stan's 5 plots. Ogog the Mogog, Fing Fang Boom, Joe the Mystic, or whatever, and Ant-Man. I think there was one more. I forget what it was. It was all the same. It kept on cycling. So where was I?
The most
lucrative.
Oh, almost, yeah. So I go to Johnstone and Cushing, and it's like, yeah, the page is $200. I had no idea that they were making $45 and $40 and $50 at DC Comics. I had $200. Oh yeah, this only pays $350. Really? Okay, I guess that's all right. I was paid more money than comic book artists who were working for DC, and I was 18 years old.
Well, they must have hated.
They didn't even know me. I had no idea. When I went back into comics and I found the rates, it was like, really? $50 a page? Are you people live in like the Neanderthal jungle or something? $50 a page? It's like nothing. So that was a great time for me doing the Johnstone and Cushing stuff.
So that you per page you were getting like $200 a page?
More. $350.
That's even better than that for a lot of stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'll tell you an embarrassing story that'll give you an idea of how I teach young artists to build themselves. I could still probably teach you things. I'll tell you
I'm
why.
ready, Neal.
I'll tell you why, and then I'll tell you how to do it. Okay?
Cool.
I go into an advertising agency. I've finished the strip. I'm doing some comic book work. I go into this advertising agency. Guy wants me to do an ad that will appear in the comic books in the back pages in black and white about some gum or some shit. I don't know what it is. And it wants to be sort of cartoony. I had done that. I did Jerry Lewis and Bob Hope comics. In fact, I made a lot more money on Jerry Lewis and Bob Hope comics than I made on any other comic books, even at DC Comics, because I did 10 pages a day.
Wow.
So anyway. So I'm at this agency, and the guy looks at my portfolio and he says, "Okay, look, I want to use you. Go ahead and do that." And he gave me the layout and talked to me about that. Really simple. I mean, compare it to a comic book case. A kid in a small baseball state, for kids and shit, holding a product.
Yes.
So he says, "So how much are you going to charge me for that?" So I'm going, $400? He says, So I don't think my bookkeeper would even take a bill for less than $1,200.
Whoa.
Oh, so we'll just make it $1,200.
Make it easier for you.
Make it easy for the bookkeeper. Blush.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was
What a
budget or
fucking
something.
idiot am I?
Okay.
Okay. So I learned a lesson that day.
Okay.
So now when I talk to
Okay.
young artists about how they're going to build their stuff, and this is the instruction, and I'm going to give it for the sake of for you,
Right,
but
right.
for the room.
Thank you.
It's a
Thank
really
you.
good piece of advice.
Trust me, I can use it.
Okay. Somebody you go over a job and they want
Right.
you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, they want you. And they're stupid enough
Right.
to ask you how
Right.
much you're going to
Right.
charge them.
Right. No,
Now they could
I
just
understand.
as easily,
Right.
tell you
Okay,
how much
cool.
they're
Thank
going
you
to
so
charge,
much.
which is the smart way to do it. Okay, they could say, we charge, the most we pay is $1,000, but they don't. They're stupid. Okay, they say, how much are you going to charge me for this? Now you've gathered a little bit of information. Let's say it's a book company, and they normally pay between $600 and $1,000. Let's just say. Now you want to get on the $1,000 end, right? You don't want to get in at $600, but you know they pay between $600 and $1,000. So they say, so what are you going to charge for that?
So it would have to be
So you
before
go
that.
in your head. I want
But
to
she's
get
3
$1,000.
hours earlier than New York.
And so you say, well, the last job I did like this,
So,
I charged
mean,
$2,000, but I want to work with you, so I'm willing to adjust my rate.
There you go.
Double it,
No, whatever.
automatic, lie.
Oh, it's 3.
Well, our euphemism of that phrase.
okay, so
Pick your own.
if
And
it
you say,
was, let's
the
say,
last time
11
I did a
o'clock,
job
time
like
would be
this,
2 o'clock
I
at night.
charged $2,000.
Okay. Okay.
Now the guy is
Cool.
going to go, I don't think we can pay more than
Uh-huh.
1,500.
Reflects.
And you go, but that's fine.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
I want to work with you. I think this is a great
I'll try
job.
to.
You know,
This is-
you're
this
not
is
quite as
becoming like
lucky
a
every
little
day as you
like-
are another day. That's a terrific rate. You've just done him a favor.
Not
There
You
you go.
brought
It isn't
your
officially
rate
started
down
yet.
to him.
So
When
far,
you
nothing
leave, he's going to
here,
go into the
but-
next cubicle and say, "This artist I just got, he brought his rate down
Yeah.
for me.
And he's totally
Normally
okay.
charges
Yeah.
$2,000. I'm getting for $1,500."
That
You
makes
saved
sense.
Look at the water.
$30.
Right.
Exactly.
Good advice.
You understand?
Yes.
Oh, that's
I,
how you do it.
I actually do know this ploy.
Okay.
Yes. I have used this ploy in the past.
Well,
But I appreciate you sharing that. That's
Because you never
Very
know
forthcoming.
what they got, what they got in mind. So
There should have been
fuck
a
it.
$6,000.
yeah.
And you're always, you always have to be flexible and courteous and kind. That's
Sure.
And I just, I just.
You'll
So
learn,
anyway.
you'll learn diplomacy from.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Either that
as
or
I
you don't get
said,
money.
in comics, the best money I ever got back in the day was the same money. I got paid the same money for Jerry Lewis and Bob Hope comics as I got for Spectre and Batman. All the rest of them had that one. You either got 45 or 50 or 55. No more. That was it. And I got paid the same. And I would pencil 10 pages in a day.
Wow.
There's nothing to them.
How many pages?
And then I'd ink 10 pages in a day.
How many pages in a day would you say?
Two.
Thanks.
Now.
Two max.
Yeah.
Hard work.
Yeah,
Except
and
for Jerry
detail.
Lewis and Bob
Yeah.
Hope. I don't know if you know why did I give it up. I mean, it's fucking crazy. But this will give you an example of the difference between advertising and comics. Do a page of, let's just say, that Green Lantern, for $50. Okay, go to an advertising agency. Tomorrow morning we want 30 frames. I know it's a lot, Neal. And I know it's gonna cost me, but I need you to get these done. A little bit of color, get them back to me by tomorrow noon. Okay, I got 30 frames. 30 frames. Okay, I really need to get them. And we can only afford $150 a frame. Frame like that. 30 by noon the next day.
Doable. Highly
They're going
doable.
to take whatever the hell I give them. $150. That's the price of 3 comic book pages.
Yeah, that's
One
amazing.
frame.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Raised my kids pretty good.
How many kids you get?
5.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
2 of them are going to be at the convention.
Yeah.
Josh, the youngest, is drawing periodically Doctor Who.
Nice.
Nice.
Excellent.
Big,
Done
big
five.
fan.
Is that the IDW Doctor Who?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we don't know
Joe
what's
one
going
of your kids?
Joel is one of my kids.
Yeah.
He's the big one.
Yeah.
And he does He does
King of the Hill.
animation design. He did the first 4 years character design for King of the Hill.
Nice.
And got shared a Grammy.
Nice.
Grammy or Emmy?
Emmy,
An Emmy.
yes.
An Emmy. And he's done the Hulk designs for the Hulk, design
Really?
for NASCAR and other stuff like that. He
Oh,
does
nice.
his own licensing stuff. He has his own line of characters. And he's got some King of the Hill drawings that he has there at the convention to sell. And there you go. Is that Josh?
What's happening?
Diggle Adams.
Hold it up.
It's the team of Diggle Adams.
Nice.
Might
Nice.
replace my other favorite team of Diggle Jock.
There you
It's
go.
just fun to say.
Anyway, so Joel does. What was I going to say about Joel? Oh, I used to when he was doing King of the Hill, because he's a pretty good artist, and King of the Hill, sucks. But I'd say, Joel, I can't. You're going in to do King of the Hill. I mean, I don't know how you do it. He says, don't worry, Dad. Just before I leave the house, I slam my hand in the door. That works out great.
Hampers his ability to actually draw.
Exactly.
Good idea. Good idea.
So he'll be at the convention with my other son, Buzz, who is attached himself to our family and has become a son.
Okay.
He's very good. His name is Buzz Ball. He's Chinese. No, he's Burmese. He's a fan favorite. You've seen him a lot of times at convention. Draws realistically. Very, very good.
Cool. Very cool. I wish I could make it to the convention. It's
Yeah, I don't know how can you miss it?
I've been working.
The whole weekend.
I got to work at the damn comic book store all weekend.
Can't sneak out for a while.
So just
Go to Comic Con.
So if anybody wants to get some stuff signed, I'll be glad to sign it. While we
I've
ask
got to go out and get
questions
some refreshments, and I will be back.
bullshit.
Can I ask a really boring question?
Sure.
And feel free to answer as much or as little of this as you like.
Unlike the way I've been doing it up to now.
Let's scoot past you, sir.
And I guess just any combination. Who are your favorite and least favorite people to work with or for in comics or in any field?
Personality-wise, or
Who's going to
professional?
answer it?
Sure.
I would say
One of my favorite people in the world was Jack Abel, who worked in my studio, and he was a terrific guy and one of the worst artists in comics. I just couldn't stand his stuff. It was horrible. I wanted to shoot him. But as a person, fabulous. Dick Giordano. A lot of people say Dick was a great guy. I don't necessarily say that, but he was my partner. And people say they have a lot of wonderful things to say about Dick. But I will say this, there's always a little bit of darkness with people who everybody thinks are great. He invited us out, me and my family out to visit him in Connecticut, where he and his wife and his two daughters live. And as I went into his house, I noticed in the foyer area, the screened-in area, they had a ping pong table. I said, Dick, play ping pong after dinner? He says, yeah, we play ping pong after dinner. Now, I hadn't played ping pong in a long time, but he insisted that neither did he.
He has a ping pong table.
behind a screen.
You see,
in a secluded,
funny how that,
area.
Funny how that is.
Yeah.
So we have dinner, we're relaxing. Oh, wait, we ought to play ping pong. No, I had been pretty good, I wasn't exactly telling the truth. I went and played ping pong, but, go to summer camp, you play ping pong. I did it with the U.S. Army. Corporal, want to play ping pong? You want me to play ping pong in that fucking table? I'm not going to fucking play in that fucking table. Speak another language. Because he seems to use that funny word. In the U.S. Army, I think you're assigned to use that word. You have to use
I
it.
think that's
When
part of
you
the manual.
use it up, they'll let you go.
Yes.
That was your 1,000th fuck. You're free to go.
Exactly, something like that. So anyway, we go out and we start to play ping pong. It beats my ass. Let's do another game. I do better, but he still beats me. Then one more game. Do good, do pretty good, still beats me. I'm tired. We got to go. Now, it's my belief if somebody's at a guest at your house, let him win one game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if he's such a good guy, he could have let me have the last game. I don't think that's right. I would.
Dark.
You know,
Think about it.
I think it's his dark side. So, you know, I'm not such a big fan of Dick Giordano. But I will tell you a story about Dick Giordano. One of the funniest stories I have ever told about anybody on earth, and it's because I love Dick. Okay? Dick, before he came to DC Comics, huh? Yeah, sure. You can record me. So anyway, Dick, before he worked at Charlton, he used to work at a kind of a studio of broken toys. He would call it a studio of broken toys. Because Dick is hard of hearing. And one of the reasons that we got along was I could modulate my voice all the time so they could always hear me. I always kept the same level of voice. So I never would drop her. And so we got along great. But everybody else, he would, I don't know, say that again? But we got along great because I always would, you know, go right to that. Whatever that thing is in his ear, I could get it. But when he worked at this studio of broken toys, it turns out, just in Connecticut, everybody in that studio had something wrong. One guy couldn't see until the paper got this close. One guy stuttered. Actually, two guys stuttered.
Oh, that conversation must have been fun.
One guy couldn't hear. There were two guys that couldn't hear very well. There was something wrong with everybody. The good thing about that was because there was something wrong with everybody, everybody forgave everybody's thing. So it was a studio of broken toys. You couldn't come in unless there was something fucked up about it. I use fucked up in the Army sense. So at some point, the studio had to break up because Dick became an editor at Charlton, whatever, and the studio broke up. But Dick would describe the studio lovingly as, you know, a great place to work because everybody felt for everybody else and understood. There was no like. So anyway, so Dick had gone through DC Comics, and now we had open continuity, and Dick was my partner, which was a very affable and wonderful relationship. And I really loved it. But at one point, and Dick would have inkers come in and do backgrounds and stuff. Anyway, he had this guy, John Basile, who used to work with him back in the day, that he needed an inker, so he invited John Basile to work with him, who was kind of between jobs. So John came in, and of course, John was one of those guys, broken toys. John stuttered. Now, I'm going to do a stuttering imitation. You have to forgive me. You have to forgive me because I'm repeating something that really happened. John would come in, and stutterers, the way stutterers are, is that if you become more nervous, you stutter more. Okay? Now, John was given assignments to do backgrounds and certain things, but John always wanted to ink figures. Dick wouldn't let him ink figures. Except maybe in certain, you can ink that figure. But John had stayed up the night before Dick came in, I came in. He had stayed up in the studio, and he crashed in the studio, and he had gone and inked some figures on the pages. Okay, I didn't quite know what was going on, but he was being very nervous. He didn't want to hand the pages to Dick, so he kept them over on his shelf on the side by the coffee machine. So he comes into Dick, and I'm standing next to Dick, and he goes to Dick, and he says, Dick, last night when I was doing the background, there was pages that I can white them out. But I went and I carried away, and I did a lot of. I hope it's okay. I inked a bunch of figures. Dick goes, huh?
Say it. Excellent.
I would die. I started sliding down the wall. And I grabbed John. I said, John, come on. Don't do this story again. I don't want to fucking die. It's okay, John. You did
How were the
fine.
pages? Were they good?
Huh?
It
was okay.
Okay.
What questions that they had? Only artists in the place that asked.
Yeah, well.
It was fine. They didn't care. But he hadn't heard a word. John was so poured it out.
What a funny story. You're going to be here for a while, right? Here tonight.
Yeah. I'm hanging out.
I'll be right back.
Till 7. Go get some shit to sign.
Coffee.
Yeah.
No coffee.
Yeah, coffee would be okay. A mocha, a mocha.
Mocha?
I love chocolate.
Coffee with cream and sugar.
She likes sugar, I like sweetener.
All
And cream.
So mocha and regular coffee with an operating sweet.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
So does anybody want me to sign anything? You're terrified of me already. Huh? Come on.
I don't know if this counts. I bought it in More Fun Comics, but it was like 2 years ago. I've got
This was more fun comic.
I've got this guy. Don't worry, it's fresh out of the laundry. But I don't know.
Oh my.
Am I going to sign a $1 bill or something?
No, it's this.
Nope.
Oh, wow.
We're probably on my chest. I'm a big fan of this because I think
Hold it up.
I felt like, I mean, you know, it's a classic image and it was a big
yeah.
comic, but I feel like the intersection of the full sentence word balloons at the end of the Silver Age and the social consciousness and real world portrayals of the Bronze Age, I feel like, I don't know. It's
Almost put me to sleep.
okay. I'm not trying to like be all pretentious and like jerk you off or anything,
We're
but
succeeding.
all right. But would that be all right?
Yeah.
And it is a little coffee stained because I do wear it to work sometimes.
Let's work together on that. You have to hold something.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to sign it right